the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is arriving in the national capital today for a two-day visit. And now this marks the second high-level meeting since the 2020 Galwan clashes. Wang Yi will sit down with India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval under the Special Representatives Mechanism to discuss the long-standing boundary dispute along the Himalayas, which is a key step in restoring dialogue process. The atmosphere reflects a broader thaw following a 2024 agreement on joint border patrolling, which eased a 5-year standoff that had severely impacted trade, travel and investment. Wang's visit also lays the groundwork for Prime Minister Modi's first trip to China in 7 years, scheduled for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit later this month in Tianjin. Modi is expected to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines, and the visit holds added geopolitical significance as tensions rise in the India-US relations following Trump's steep tariffs. Experts say that this growing unpredictability in the US policy could be nudging India and China closer, boosting their diplomatic and economic engagement.
The Chinese Ministry of Commerce and General Administration of Customs in early April, as you would be aware, had announced the decision to implement export controls on certain rare earth related items. We are in touch with the Chinese side both here in Delhi as also in Beijing to bring predictability in supply chain for trade consistent with international practices.
Now, after years of tension, border talks are back on the table. Direct air flights are set to resume. Even border trade, frozen for 5 years, is now likely to restart. On the diplomatic front, high-level engagement has resumed, signaling a cautious thaw. Pilgrims will once again be able to take the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra through the Chinese territory. And in a major shift, tourist visas for Chinese nationals are back. It's a broader spectrum of confidence-building measures, together marking what both sides are calling a fresh chapter, the reset. And the engagements are gathering pace in the run-up to Prime Minister Modi's visit to China. Wang Yi and Jaishankar are already working to set the agenda for the Modi-Xi bilateral. At the heart of these talks is the border trade long stalled under strain. After a 5-year freeze, discussions to reopen trade routes through Lipulekh Pass, Shipki La Pass and Nathula Pass are back on the table. The momentum, no coincidence, with Washington turning up the tariff heat, Beijing and New Delhi appear intent on scripting their own chapter of cooperation. And let's take a listen to what S. Jaishankar has to say about the upcoming meeting and how there can be a reset in ties between India and China.
Our bilateral relationship requires that we take a far-seeing approach to our ties. Since our leaders' meeting in Kazan in October 2024, the India-China relationship has been gradually moving in a positive direction. Our responsibility is to maintain that momentum. In recent times, as you have noted, Excellency, the two of us have had several opportunities to meet at international events and carry out strategic communication. It is our expectation that this will now be regular and take place in each other's countries. This year, we are marking the 75th year of the establishment of diplomatic relations between our two countries. We appreciate that the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra has also resumed after a gap of 5 years. I thank the Chinese side for their cooperation on this matter. Excellency, we have made good progress in the past 9 months for the normalization of our bilateral relations. It is the result of the resolution of friction along the border and our ability to maintain peace and tranquility there. This is the fundamental basis of our mutual strategic trust and for smooth development of bilateral relations. It is now incumbent on us to address other aspects related to the border, including de-escalation. As neighboring nations and major economies in the world today, there are various facets and dimensions of our ties. Measures towards normalizing our people-to-people exchanges can certainly foster mutually beneficial cooperation. It is also essential in this context that restrictive trade measures and roadblocks are avoided. I hope to discuss these issues with you in further detail.
Further, I'm joined by Dr. Tilak Jha, who is a China expert and associate professor at the Bennett University. Thank you so much, Dr. Jha, for taking your time and joining me over here at News9. At the very outset, Dr. Jha, what is your expectations from this meeting? Of course, there is this whole concept of a reset between the India-China ties, but particularly when it comes in the backdrop of how US has imposed very steep tariffs on India. How does this renewed process of dialogue send across a message to the international community?
I think we should not be very, very hopeful about some very quick resolution of the differences between India and China. It has been a relationship which has been almost in freeze for 5 years since the Galwan incident, as you also pointed out. So it's a slow resumption of ties that we will see. But I think if we see history as well, that's also a signal of the fact that India and China, when it comes to sort of resuming their ties, they act slow. 1962, something happened. It almost took 2 decades before ties resumed. By the way, I think, as you pointed out, the US factor is definitely something that seems to be suddenly a very important factor. But the fact remains that the two countries started mending their ties since October, when Trump was nowhere around the scene. Even the US polls in those days were not sure if Trump would come back to power. So I think this is a larger resetting of the ties, and we have to see it in that context. Of course, the American developments in recent times, especially on tariffs and the inconsistency and unpredictability of Trump administration, has become an additional factor why the two countries definitely seem to be and realize the need to come closer and mend their ties. I think, again, history is a lesson. Whenever a major country tries to sort of disturb the world order or use it to its own advantage, only for its own geopolitical purposes, as is the case today in case of US, then we see that that China as well has earlier also tried to diversify. When it had issues with Soviet Russia, then it tried to come closer to Japan, it tried to come closer to US and other American allies. So as of now, when China is also facing issues with America, they have an ongoing dispute. It's a much broader dispute compared to us, for that matter, although I won't say that India is still in conflict with the US. I think that is not the case as of now. We are not in conflict per se. China, but for sure, is in a much bigger, widespread conflict. So I think China also needs to balance the American geopolitical plans, and India also needs to balance. So that's where both the countries' interests seem to be coming together. But having said that, I think it will be a slow rebalancing and rebuilding of the ties. So I think in the next couple of months, beginning from, of course, the current ongoing visit of Wang Yi, we will see the Prime Minister's visit, which is coming up towards the end, likely announcement of direct flights between the two countries, more agreement on rare earths, and of course, still, I think on the border as well, we will see possibly that the soldiers which are still there, although there is no eyeball-to-eyeball situation, but they're also being removed. So I think there's a lot happen. I think we'll have to wait for almost at least another 5-6 months before we see some significant progress.
But Mr. Jha, there is a history with China, whether it's Galwan or earlier, there have been skirmishes taking place also at the border front. But now when Wang Yi is going to be in India, in Delhi, to speak to the Prime Minister and to the External Affairs Minister, what does it talk about China's effort also for a climb down in their position to extend an olive branch towards India?
I think we don't actually see much progress on the border front. This is a senior representative talk. The previous round of talk happened when Mr. Doval went there. Of course, there was a freeze before that. And there is another round of talk. This is basically tomorrow. There is a engagement around 11 a.m. We'll see the two foreign ministers. Having talk, and Mr. Doval having talk. I think the whole point is that there has to be much more political willingness. We don't see from Chinese side any serious plan in terms of settling the dispute with India for good. They can settle it. I think in the 1960s itself, there were some proposals on the table. We don't see those proposals anywhere on the table now. Rather, in recent years, we have seen clamping down all along the border in terms of ramping up of infrastructure, and not just these. We're talking about military infrastructure, deployment of missiles. We are talking about actual handcuffs. We are talking about even deaths for that matter, as in the case of Galwan. Even in case of Doklam earlier, we have seen. So there is a lot of ramping. This is part of the Chinese strategy for that matter. I think they have historically waged the people's war, So even if they don't really realize the need for that matter to take it a full-scale war, they continuously want to keep up the pressure. So I think it's a much more political thing. Once they decide, 24 round of talks is not a small number of talks. I think America and America and China, when they were trying to resume their ties, they had much less number of talks, but they were serious about mending the ties. So I think here what we see for that matter is that the Chinese, they have to come clean on whether they actually want to settle border, or they just want it to be something which passes time, gives another couple of years before they take the de facto front seat, and they become the foremost power in South China Sea. They see American power residing further. So it seems more like a time-biding strategy rather than something very, 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 very serious. So I think we'll have to take a step very, very carefully. We have no reason as of now to blindly trust the Chinese. We also have to be careful. We have to keep ourselves ready that there could be a flare-up at any point of time. So yes, it is an important neighbor. We can't do without China. It's the most important neighbor, one of our biggest trade partners, a major important international player, Security Council member. All of these facts remaining. But the fact is that we have to always be ready for eventualities. We always have to be ready for ties to be on another downslide, and we must be ready for that too.
Absolutely, Mr. Shah. Thank you so much for taking your time and joining me over here, as we are going to be keeping a close focus on all the developments taking place when Wang Yi is in the national capital. Now, New Delhi and Beijing have been having intensive bilateral engagement since 2024, especially after Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping's meeting at the BRICS summit in October. Now, Wang Yi's first line of business is to meet the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, where both special representatives will chair the 24th round of the special representatives talks. Meanwhile, the committee-level talks have reached round 34. Border talks hold more significance in the backdrop of the tariff pressure, considering that a large amount of border trade is also directly affected. Both New Delhi and Beijing will now aim to reach mutually beneficial agreements as soon as possible. And any level of success on the border, trade and conflict resolution enables both India and China to emerge stronger in the face of Washington's tariff arm twisting.